It is Kyler with FollowHook, and we are talking about opt-in forms in this lesson. I love opt-in forms. Everybody does, right? It's the way you get new customers to submit their data, existing customers to tell you things you need to know. And FollowHook integrates beautifully with the Contact Form 7 plugin. Contact Form 7, if you don't know what it is, it's one of the most wildly popular WordPress plugins in existence. Right now it has over 5 million active installations. And it's free, it's highly customizable, and so we've integrated with this plugin to allow you to create unlimited opt-in forms on your website that feed data directly into FollowHook. So let's get started. I'm jumping over to theater11.com, and if you scroll down on this site, you will see a couple different opt-in forms. We're going to focus on this one on the bottom here, in the footer of the site. This opt-in form is asking for the name, email, and then has a GDPR checkbox, and then of course the submit button. Pretty standard fare, right? So how do we set this up on your site? Go ahead and sign into your WordPress dashboard. And if you haven't used Contact Form 7 before, it's easy to install, and I'm going to show you how to set up a form. Just go to Plugins, Add New, type in Contact Form 7 in the top right search, and then go ahead and install and activate it. Now once it's active, on the left you'll have a contact in the admin. Click on that, and it's going to show you a default form that Contact Form 7 puts on your website. We're going to ignore that form for now and just click Add New. I typically like to name them by their purpose. And then here's how Contact Form 7 works. The first tab, called Form, is where you actually build the form. I'm going to show you how to do that. And before you freak out if this looks complicated, if you look below this video, there's a link where you can download a sample form that I've already set up for you. But I want to cover this in some detail because once you know how to use this, you're going to have a lot of freedom on your website in creating forms with Contact Form 7 and then tying them to FollowHook. So as I said, the first tab is building the form. The second tab is what you want Contact Form 7 to do once information is submitted. The third tab is just messages, like if there's an error with the form, or the top one's the one I change the most, the success message. And then this tab we don't have to worry about. So let's go back to form. I'm going to wipe all this out. And one thing about this area, it accepts any type of HTML or CSS styling. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. You don't have to know. But if you do like to mess around with that stuff, you can use it in here. So jumping back to theater11.com, to recreate this opt-in form, all we have to do is build out these fields. So the first field is a name. So that's just text. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to give it a name that makes sense to me. No spaces in this first field. Default value, what is that? Well, if you look at this form, it says first name, but then when I click to type, that goes away. This is called placeholder text, and it's just a nicer way to tell people what the fields are for versus the older way of putting the label above the fields. I like this method better. So what you can do is put whatever value in there you want, and then make sure you check this box. If you don't check that box, when they click in the field to type, whatever is in there won't go away. They have to manually delete it, which is a pain. And that's it. If you have a WordPress theme that uses specific classes, you can do that here. But go ahead and insert tag. Now the next field we have is email. So I'm going to hit enter, and then I'll click email. Again, a name that makes sense to me. And I forgot to mention, but you can make these fields required, which for first name and email, you definitely want to make them required. So I'm going to check that box. There's my default value, put a check, insert tag. So obviously I didn't make this one required. How do I do that? Well, this little asterisk by the field type is what tells Contact Form 7 that it's a required field. So I can just simply add that in. You don't have to use these quick add buttons. You can just copy and paste this stuff in. So let's say I wanted a last name on the form. I could just copy the first name one, paste it in, change the appropriate fields. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to delete that. Why wouldn't I want a last name? So just a little opt-in form tip. You want as few steps as possible for someone that's giving you their information. So adding another field, and even though that doesn't seem like a big deal, it's a subconscious thing. So keep your opt-in forms as minimal as possible. All right, next, let's go ahead and add a submit button. And for the label, I want to talk about yet another opt-in form tip, and this is important. Jumping back to theater11.com, you'll see that our submit button says send me updates. What is that saying? It's putting the action on us. When someone looks at that, subconsciously it's telling them we're going to serve them. A lot of people might put subscribe now on their buttons, and that works fine, but then the action is put on the customer. It's a very small point, but it's yet another way to tweak your opt-in forms to really present them in a way that makes people want to subscribe to your information or get whatever you're offering. So I'm going to say send me updates, insert. Okay, so this is a basic functioning form. One difference is it doesn't have the GDPR acceptance. I go into it in detail in another lesson, but in a nutshell, GDPR law requires opt-in forms that are storing customer data to have a place where people agree to their data being used. So that's what I'm doing here. Yes, please send me updates and add me to your list. I agree to site privacy and cookie policies. And so they can't submit this form on my site unless they check that box. So we can do that same thing here. I'm going to click and enter, and then it's called acceptance in contact form 7. And it defaults to making the checkbox optional. To me, that defeats the purpose of the checkbox, so I uncheck that so that they can't submit the form without agreeing. Now that's just going to put a checkbox only. So if I add some styling, this specifies the font size, the padding around the box, etc. Again, this will be in the form that you import at the end of the lesson, so you don't have to worry about this. And if you have any questions about this and you're a pro user, feel free to ask at support.followhook.com. We're happy to help you out. This form will look very similar to this one based on your theme styling. So what's next? The Mail tab is where we tell the form what we want it to do. Now, for a normal contact form, you're typically going to have it send you the information. But since this form is tied into Followhook, it doesn't really need to send you their info. It just needs to let you know that someone opted in. There's a lot you can do with these settings, and I'm not going to go into all the granular details, but let me show you what's going on. These field names in brackets are shortcodes pulling your field names from over here. So first name and email address, if I want to pull that data in anywhere on this form, I would use that. So this is the message body of the email that's going to be sent to me. So I could say, and you see I use the same name that I used in the other field, same for email. This can say whatever you want it to say. So again, for me, for my intents and purposes, I don't need any of that. I could just have it say something like this. Again, it's completely up to you. Now let's look at these fields above. This first field is the email address the form is going to send the alert to. From is the email address, and it's best to keep this at your domain. There's a lot of details surrounding that, but mail servers try to cut down on spam, and so if your website tries to send email from another domain, it might get flagged as spam. So leave the return email address here at your domain, okay? And this part can be whatever. It can be fake. You could just say form@yourdomainname.com and then just put a readable name here and leave the greater and less than signs. Subject, I like to use the subject to tell me what page or what opt-in form this came from. That way, as soon as I see it in my inbox, I know someone wants updates on the film, and that's what happened. Okay, additional headers, you don't have to have anything here, but this reply to, here's what this is doing. Emails carry information so that when you click reply in your email client, it automatically composes to the person who sent the email. So obviously you don't want to send the email back to your website. That doesn't make sense. So what you could do is in the brackets, replace this with the field name you used for the email address. So that's a nice recommended change to make your life easier. Okay, so messages. Again, I don't mess with all of this stuff, but this first one, ultra boring. This is much better. Makes them feel good about what they just did. So let's go ahead and save this form. And now if I click on contact, it'll show me the new form in the list. So how do you put this somewhere on your website? Contact Form 7 gives you a shortcode, which is a WordPress thing. And all you have to do is highlight that shortcode, and then you can use that shortcode anywhere in your theme or on any page or blog post. So for example, if I wanted to create an opt-in page regarding the film, I would just paste the shortcode in here, and then WordPress is going to put that form on that page. It's really cool. And if you're developing your own theme, obviously you know how to pull these shortcodes in. As I did here, I have this opt-in form showing on my footer on every page. Nice, right? So there you go. That's how you create an opt-in form. And in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to tie that opt-in form to Followhook. So I told you I would provide an opt-in form for you. If you look below this lesson, you should see a zip file. If you download that zip file to your computer, unzip it, and then go to Tools, Import. And this is just a WordPress function. This is not specific to FollowHook. If you've never used the WordPress importer before, it's on the very bottom, and you'll probably have to install it if you've not used it. You just click Install Now, and then you can run it. Then all you do is you browse to the file and import that, and it'll bring in the contact form that I created for you. And then when you've done that, you do need to jump in and at a minimum go to the Mail tab and make sure the form is sending to you and then using your domain name here. And then of course anything else you want to change you can do. So I hope this is helpful. Pro users, post questions in support.followhook.com. Thank you so much for being a FollowHook customer, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we talk about assigning forms to FollowHook.